Now welcome to another lightning response video, though I think this might be more of a thunderous ramble. I have gotten a lot of questions about the Acolyte over the past few days, ever since that 4th episode dropped, and I want to get to or answer as many of them as I can. And so let's waste no time and jump right in and begin with this question from Peter Sanzin, who asked, Hey Thor, now you might understand how OT fans feel about the prequels contradicting the OT. Everyone says not to get upset about small stuff, and not everything needs to stay true to the canon. But here, everyone gets upset about a small line from one movie, possibly, we don't even know how it ends, remember, breaking a small part of canon. And first of all, I don't entirely know what you mean when you say, now I know how it feels to be an OT fan. I mean, I'm not sure how old you think I am, but let's just say I was 21 when The Phantom Menace came out. I had already seen the original films many times, dozens upon dozens of times, and long since become a huge fan of Star Wars. And so anyway, I'm assuming the one line you're referring to here is the line from Ki-Adi-Mundi, the line where, in The Phantom Menace, he says, the Sith have been extinct for a millennium. And I would argue that is not a small line, not at all. I would argue that is one of the most important lines in the entire movie, if not the entire prequel trilogy, if not all of Star Wars, really. Because it contextualizes everything we know about the Jedi and the state of the galaxy at that point in time, and the last 1,000 years. We know, thanks to that line, that the Jedi haven't been, they haven't been like fighting the Sith rather consistently ever since the Sith first came into being. Basically, we know that there hasn't been maybe some sort of on and off again long-standing war that maybe flares up every so often, that there hasn't been maybe a ton of power plays by the Sith for the past 1,000 years or longer. Again, there's been nothing from them for 1,000 years. It has literally been that long since they even seen them, since they saw a sign of them, and since they thought they had defeated them for good. And thus, again, from that one line, we can begin to understand why they are completely unprepared for the return of the Sith, why Palpatine caught them so off guard and was literally just kind of hiding right under their nose. Which also, again, I would argue here, goes along with why they were becoming, as Yoda says in Episode 2, why they were a little too sure of themselves, or becoming a little too arrogant even. We know and can infer so much from just that one line. It is, you could almost say, the foundation of everything we know about the state of the galaxy, the mindset of the Jedi, and even the mindset of the Sith. That one line really does tell us so much, and if it is not true, well then everything we thought we knew now changes. Because now it's like, well, yeah, the Jedi did actually see some signs of the Sith 100 years ago. They did see some training of individuals, and that maybe they were plotting something bigger behind the scenes. We even have Vestra Rose saying she's afraid or is sensing that this may just be the tip of the iceberg, essentially, that there might be some sort of shift in the balance coming because of all this. And so what this all does is it means that the Jedi can't be perhaps so forgiven, if that's even the right word, for how they screwed up with Palpatine because they were just caught so off guard by him. Though yes, they should always remain vigilant. That is what the Jedi are supposed to do. They're always supposed to be on guard for the return of evil or the return of the dark side, the Sith, whatever you want to call them. But now it's not like Palpatine came completely or absolutely out of nowhere. It's not like they had a 1,000-year period where there was just nothing from them or just relative peace across the galaxy without the Sith. Not that there weren't any conflicts or problems of any kind in that time period, but more or less, again, without the Sith, we didn't have any truly galactic scale threats to worry about as far as we know, which then maybe caused the Jedi to relax or become a bit complacent. And that's why they were getting a bit too sure of themselves, and that's how Palpatine rose to power, or what he took advantage of. But now, with signs of the Sith returning 100 years prior, it kind of shifts more to sheer incompetence on the part of the Jedi, or them being maybe idiots, or there being some sort of cover-up or something. It's just them now ignoring or not taking a threat seriously, or again, some sort of cover-up. That might be what happens. You did point out we don't know what comes of all of this, which is true. But it is no longer simply the fact that there had been no Sith for 1,000 years and the Jedi were just caught completely unprepared, and that is a big part of the reason why Palpatine wins. Now it is that the Jedi screwed up even more than they already had. Alright, now we move on to this comment from Sylvanas Windrunner Resurrected, who asked, Hey Thor, in the meeting scene, they literally say they think it's a Jedi training May. Their go-to assumption is a fallen Jedi, not Sith, which would make sense if Sith were believed extinct 900 years ago. You could very well have ex-Jedi that turn to the dark side without Sith being in the picture. Sith is a very specific religious order with specific implications. Also, Jar Jar is the masked Sith Lord and Grogu blew up the Death Star. Okay, so do keep in mind here that the reason why Qui-Gon in The Phantom Menace thought that Maul was a Sith was because he was well trained in the Jedi arts. And the reason why he came to that conclusion that way, that he thought Maul must be a Sith after only one very brief encounter or fight against him, where he in a sense kind of shows Jedi-like training or uses skills similar to a Jedi. And even though Qui-Gon didn't ask when he first encountered him, hey, do you follow the Sith ways and or traditions, or are you more of a freelance dark side user? Or maybe you think of yourself as a dark Jedi. Were you even trained by a fallen Jedi? How exactly would you like to be categorized? I don't want to miss dark side faction you. And well, the reason why he doesn't ask, or why Qui-Gon just immediately jumps to this conclusion, is because in all reality, the Sith are just the antithesis of the Jedi. Whereas the Jedi are the embodiment of the light side, they are selfless and operate in a Jedi order. They are united by a common goal for good and follow a code. The Sith are then the embodiment of the dark side. They are selfish, they use others and only care about their own wants and desires. And even though, yes, I know there is a Sith code, but they just do what they want to do, whatever they have to do in order to get what they want. The only rule they actually really follow is their own rule. So basically here, what I'm saying is that Qui-Gon sees this guy that is just as well trained as a Jedi might be, but that uses the dark side, and therefore this is either a Sith or essentially the same thing as a Sith in everything but name. It's pretty much the same way you could argue Ahsoka, even if she doesn't call herself a Jedi, is one for all intents and purposes. To put it as simply as I can, and I'm not trying to piss off anyone who loves the Sith and their rich history across legends, I'm not trying to anger you, I'm just trying to make a point here. But what Qui-Gon fights, what Maul is in his eyes, is the opposite of a Jedi, and therefore, for all he really cares, for all Qui-Gon cares, it's a Sith or something just as dangerous as one, and figuring out what exactly it calls itself is pretty much irrelevant because it's a serious threat that needs to be stopped. Heck, at the end of the movie, Mace Windu was even like, there's no doubt this mysterious warrior is a Sith. And Yoda's like, yep, no doubt about it, even though neither one of us have encountered him or anything like that. We're basing that entirely off of what? Well, the fact that it killed a Jedi. Just like going back to the Acolyte, if May has been trained to use the dark side by a fallen Jedi, it doesn't really make it any more or less of a threat than if she's trained by someone that calls themselves a Sith. The dark side endgame is always the same. That's the problem with it. It corrupts absolutely. It makes you the very epitome of selfishness, and your goal as a Sith, if you're well trained enough or powerful enough or committed to the dark side enough, is essentially going to be the same as a dark Jedi's goal. And again, I know people are going to say that the Sith are different because of this reason or that, or their rich history, their traditions, and all of that. And I totally get and respect that stance. I'm not trying to negate anything about that. I'm just saying that a powerful dark side user is a massive threat no matter what they may or may not call themselves. And that is because of the nature of the dark side, what they desire, what their agenda turns into. It's always going to be pretty much the same, no matter the name they give to themselves or given to them. If you are that powerful with the dark side, you are a very selfish being that is going to seek very bad things. And again, the name is just kind of irrelevant. And so the problem is, any signs of a dark side user 100 years before the Sith, the actual Sith, do emerge, that is something you must talk about and take into consideration, no matter what they call themselves. It's not like, well, we haven't seen the Sith in 1,000 years, but we did have that cult of dark Jedi a few hundred years ago or 100 years ago. But that's not the same thing, so no need to look into any possible connection there. Alright, hopefully I have made my point, and let's move on to this question now from Jacob Makowski, who asked, Hey Thor, I have a theory that they will show that Ki-Adi took part in the Sith Coverup. Greetings from a viewer from Poland, love your work. And I do think you're right here. I do think that they are gonna somehow show that this was all covered up and that Ki-Adi Mundi is going to be a part of that cover-up. But of course, the question then becomes, why is it covered up? Now, the show seems to imply that Vestra Rowe is very worried about the perception of the Jedi in the larger galaxy, that she's worried about their reputation or something along those lines. And so perhaps that is why it is covered up, or that's at least why they're going to go with, or what they're going to go with. I don't know how much sense that is going to make. I mean, are the council going to actually be aware of this or not at any point? Is she somehow going to keep the whole thing from them, including Jedi ending up dead? I mean, you would really think that Yoda would be made aware of a dead Jedi, or one that is killed by somebody especially. And so, though yes, I agree your theory or the belief that Ki-Adi-Mundi may be part of a cover-up could be true, but I don't know that that makes a lot of sense. I don't know how that is going to work, and I wish them luck in making it all work. Alright, moving right along, we have a comment now from President Millard Fillmore, who asked, "Hey Thor, I guess I feel strange how much we disagree about the show. I'm really enjoying the show. I feel invested. I want to find out the mystery here. I don't know, is this just a matter of taste?" And I mean, pretty much everything when it comes to entertainment especially is a matter of taste, right? It's all a matter of preference. You can like what you want to like. I don't really have any problem with you or anyone else saying they love the show or they're very vested in it. That's fine. We may disagree, but why do we have to get like mad at each other? Why do you have to justify why you like it, and why do I justify or have to justify why I dislike it? Now, I do of course do that in my videos. I go into the reasons why. But so often I hear that, well, because you don't like this and you're putting out these videos, you're ruining the show for me or other people. You're being toxic. I can't enjoy it because so many of you don't like it. And it's like, well, don't predicate your enjoyment off my opinion of it. Don't let other people's opinion change how you feel. I mean, Andor, I always go to this example. I loved Andor. I think it is the best thing Star Wars in a long time. And there are people out there who absolutely hate it, who think it is the worst thing Star Wars ever, who don't want to consider it Star Wars and all of that. And that opinion of it doesn't change my opinion of it. I enjoy it. I don't care that you didn't like it. I mean, I care because I like to have a discussion with people, and I like to respect the opinion of others, but I don't have to agree with it, and I certainly don't have to be kind in order for you to enjoy something when you have the option to either ignore my opinion or just accept it as my opinion and one different from your own. Alright, and next up then this question from Blake Laushi, who asked, "Hey Thor, I smell a full flashback episode coming and no resolution to that confrontation until episode 6. Just a hunch." And you know, I think that is a possibility. I think they would get a ton of hate from people who are truly vested and want to see this fight if they do that. But I could certainly see a flashback to sort of recontextualize how we are going to see it, if that makes sense. We know, or kind of have been told, we're going to see multiple points of view yet in the show about that incident 16 years ago. So who knows, maybe we now get the perspective of May in the next episode from 16 years ago or something like that. I do think we had it hinted at that we're going to get Master Soul's perspective when he said, once we get back to the ship, I'm going to tell you everything to Osha. But anyway, if they do that, I think they're going to get a lot of angry responses, and not just from the people who haven't been liking the show, but from the people who actually have. So good luck to them if they do that. Alright, moving on now, we have a comment here from Ronald Mays, who asked, "Hey Thor, love your channel. As a huge High Republic fan who wanted this show to give the era a good live-action debut, I think it's been real disappointing. One of the weaker aspects that I don't see anyone discussing is the mischaracterization of Vestra Rowe. I understand most casual viewers don't read the High Republic books, and it's been 100 years, but Acolyte Vestra is completely different from book Vestra. Vestra would never be this dogmatic and make dumb decisions like she has in the Acolyte. She was a great Jedi prodigy in the books, and it's frustrating to watch." And I agree with you. This is not the same character from the books, and I guess you could make the argument 100 years has gone by, and that is a long time for a person to change, of course. But it more along the lines feels like they kind of cherry-picked just a random character, or maybe not a random character. They selected the one they wanted, I guess. But it was kind of like, we need some character from the High Republic books in this show, right? So which one can we use? Which one can we kind of bait the fans with of the High Republic that this is going to be the show they're looking for? And for whatever reason, they settled on Vestra Rowe because maybe she works for the idea they have. I don't know. Again, we haven't seen the full show yet. And I certainly believe Vestra has some weird motivations, or something has happened to her. Because, as you point out, this is not the character from the books. This is a radically different character, which leads me to believe if they did care at all about the initial character, or about the High Republic period itself, they have some sort of reason why she is so different that she has, again, perhaps, if my theory is true, she has been found by the Sith at some point and corrupted, and she is now working for them, or is one of them. Alright, let's get to a final question or two. I feel like my voice is kind of going. I've been talking way too much about the Acolyte the last few days, and I will be doing that all night tonight on my weekly voice chat on my Discord server. And so this question comes to us from Adam Schwartfigger, who asked, "Hey Thor, what's your thought on the idea that all the witches giving their power to one, and that one now having the power of many being the master? Seems like something a cult of witches would do. I don't know, just a random thought I had. Maybe you can make sense of the idea better than I can." I do think you could potentially be onto something if it turns out that Coral is the Sith master or apprentice or whatever, Darth Smiley or Kylo Smiles, whatever his name is. If she turns out to be the Sith or one of the Sith or whatever, it could potentially be she somehow has all the power of the witches, the power of the many. I don't know how much sense that makes in terms of the Sith. Again, it's like sharing power, and that is kind of the opposite of the Sith, which is one of my problems-ish with the witches in general. The idea that something that is more dark side would share power and be a many when they really only care about being the one. But anyway, you could be right. That is a possibility. Again, if Coral is the Sith Lord or involved in this, I think there's a chance she has the power of all the witches. Alright, and final question here comes to us from Cypher, who asked, "Hey Thor, I think Quamir has to be the Sith in the woods. He knew the way to the Jedi Master's cabin. More importantly, he is the only one who knew May was planning to abandon her mission and turn herself in. He would have been the only one with a reason to kill Kilnaka instead of letting May do it, to stop her from turning herself in. He was the only one who could have gotten there before her. No one else but him makes sense." And the fact that he is the only one that, with the information presented to us, that he is the only one that makes sense, is then the reason why I don't think it's him. It is too obvious. And so either we are being misdirected or misled or deceived even by giving us something so obvious that we have to come to that conclusion and only that conclusion, because otherwise we have to construe things in weird ways. Like if it is anybody else, they would have had to have been there before, they would have had to know something in advance and all these things. Again, it is pointing so much to him that, yeah, I agree it kind of has to be him, but it wouldn't make sense if it is him, because then this isn't much of a mystery when you just present all the evidence for the actual person that is supposed to be the mystery. But perhaps this isn't the mystery we're supposed to be solving at all. Perhaps there is another mystery, and we know, of course, there is a master and an apprentice Sith. I think we are under the impression here that May is kind of trying to vie to be an apprentice to the apprentice to destroy a master. So it could be that we will have it revealed that Quamir is the apprentice Sith, and that we will see in the final episode or a post-credit scene, we will see the master Sith, but we're going to be led to believe before we see that Quamir is the master Sith and that he's looking for an apprentice to carry on the Sith. And it's just a big misdirect kind of thing, and that there simply is there is a bigger fish out there yet. Well, I think that is going to be all I got for you this time. Now it is your turn. Take to the comments below and tell me what you think about my answers to any of these questions. Give me your Acolyte theories, or tell me why you're not watching the show, whatever you want to talk about in regards to it. Or, of course, you can always ask a question for a future lightning response or thunderous ramble video. All you got to do, start your comment off with "Hey Thor" and then ask away. But either way, leave those comments below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.